So, as I said, I'm really glad and happy to have Mel with us today for the keynote. Mel is originally from Germany, but came to New Zealand a long time ago. She worked in film and visual effects for a very long time, and then got really excited by the technology of augmented reality in games. In her work, she uses both approaches to work with children, with communities, to create a real change. And she doesn't do it alone with designing games and augmented reality applications, but also in the way she approaches her work. She founded a company almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, 9 years now.
And works with a really diverse team to produce truly inclusive applications and approaches. So that's really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to your talk. Please welcome Langlotz.
Thank you, Heide. I just wanted to make sure so everybody can hear me properly. Yeah, all good. And I hear we've got some international guests. So, Ohayo gozaimasu, ni hao, and guten Morgen. And did I miss anyone? Yeah, I don't know the Belgian one, actually. Sorry, Miranda. So the beginning of my talk, I actually had to take write a little bit of a script because I did a bit of a history dive. So I'm the founder and CEO of GeoAR Games. We dropped the games because the names seemed to be quite long. So, and everybody kept calling us GeoAR anyway, so we decided to drop the games, and now we're just GeoAR. So yeah, I'm Melanie Langlotz. I've been here for 24 years. Been quite a while. I'm still, New Zealand is my home now. I don't have any intentions to go back. Let's just kind of like dive in. So I'll go through my notes and give you a bit of a history lesson of what's been happening, and hopefully you'll find some inspiration in the values and the ethics that guided us. But for those that might not necessarily have picked up on it, GeoAR stands for Geospatial Augmented Reality. That's what we specialize in. And we do not only do AR, we also do XR, and we do browser games and all sorts of like interactive experiences as long as they're gamified. My purpose in life is to inspire and empower people around me. I would say that I'm very resilient. Other people call it stubborn. Both is true. This September, like Heide said, it'll be 9 years since I founded GeoAR with my co-founder Amy Volkan at the time. It's been a very rocky road. Trying to figure out where we're going to build revenue up from has been interesting. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. We recently ran our second values workshop of our team, and that's when I realized that our values really laid the foundation to our success. And that is what I want to talk to you about today. So if you don't mind, I'll take you on a bit of a journey from how we started to where we're heading next with bits and pieces of value and ethics reflections peppered throughout. This will be a little bit of an evolution and business talk and less about game design and such. But a lot of learnings around, mistakes we made, things we learned. But I'll tell you that there is a happy end. So in 2011, I had the idea for what later would become Magical Park, which is the world's first digital augmented reality playground. It wasn't until I was made redundant that I plucked up my courage to start a game studio. I've never been a gamer, still not really. But I love the idea of using augmented reality to take game elements and take them outdoors. When I got made redundant, my colleague Amy Volkan said she liked my idea and thought she could build the game. It was her first game that she ever developed. So that was quite a feat. So that's Amy and I. Amy is now the CEO of the Dinosaur Polo Club, and I'm really excited for her, so go Amy. We decided to set up the game studio 2015, September 2015, and we got straight away accepted into 2 startup incubators. The first one was Startup Chile, which I cannot recommend highly enough. So if you don't know about Startup Chile, please do check it out. Best incubator deal that you can possibly get. And then there's Lightning Lab in Wellington. And being part of an incubator basically paid our first 6 months of being able to focus on building a prototype and what we wanted to do without having to worry financially. And I didn't think about the importance of values when Amy and I decided to join forces and become co-founders. If you've never had a co-founder, but maybe you are thinking about getting a co-founder or you're looking for one, it's like being married. It really is. And during our 3 months in Lightning Lab in Wellington, for instance, Amy and I, we were both living in a tiny little bedroom. We were literally connected by the hip. And needless to say, that led to a lot of differing opinions as well. We hadn't sat down and discussed our values, but it very quickly emerged that we had slightly different beliefs on things, and we argued a lot about decisions. The number one argument I remember was around revenue. If we needed to look for bread and butter work to get revenue while building Magical Park, who would be an acceptable client? For Amy, it would have to be somebody who was 100% sustainable, clean, green, doing the right thing. I came from the film industry. I was used to working with brands like Coca-Cola and McDonald's and whatever. So I came from an industry where landing a Coca-Cola deal was like, yay, you've made it. And Amy was like, Coca-Cola, the devil. And so I was like, oh God, how are we going to find revenue? But what that actually did is it really set the base for us having a discussion as to who and how do we want to work with. And because Amy was so absolutely staunch on we are not working with somebody that isn't aligned in our values and what we are about, I didn't have a choice than really focusing on clients that she approved of. So it's almost like we had a blacklist of we will not work with those people even if they approach us. What that did though is that it had us from the start aligned with going after clients who would also align with us. So it was a value alignment from the start. We would pitch and they would very quickly realize that there was a synergy, a natural synergy. They didn't have to question whether we were a fit for their values because we had researched them already. At the time, I wasn't even familiar with the term greenwashing, and I had no idea about the damage that some of the biggest global corporations did. I was really naive. I was kind of like in my own little bubble. And I'm, to this day, very grateful how Amy educated me on what was going on. Amy has always been a very big animal rights advocate and environmentalist. She's made a lot of changes happening in this country that are just mind-blowing. And, I'm really, really proud of what she's achieved. So she literally, I'm giving her all the credit for setting our foundation. And we had actually a conversation last night where I said to her, I'm doing this talk and I just wanted to check in with you as to what values do you remember, because we never actually wrote them down on paper. They came out as we were discussing and having arguments. But what it came down to was we tried to make ethical decisions. We wanted to respect the people and the environment that we would be working with. We also wanted to have fun, create fun. That was really important for us. We wanted to be honest and transparent and make sure that, we were authentic, having integrity, and we act responsibly. So this is where I want you to reflect for a moment a little bit on your own situation. So do you know the values of your university or company? Are you familiar with them? Were the values one of the key factors that had you sign up with the university or made you want to work with your company or your team? Do you know your values? Because let me tell you, every single time when you get frustrated or when you get upset about something, that is when one of your values has been compromised. That's why you get upset. This is the sort of personal growth that I have with my team on a regular basis. So we schedule time every month where we get together and we have personal growth sessions. where we talk about business evolution, where we talk about what are our values, are they aligned, what are your values. This is really important to who we are today. But again, I cannot emphasize enough. At the time, I didn't realize, and anything that I'm talking about today, I really only realized in the last 2 years. And then the values your company, your team, or your project are built on will shape your culture. They will shape what sort of people you attract, what sort of clients will want to work with you. And it is hard when you're lacking revenue and need to find a solution, but you know what sort of clients you're looking for, and that will align your values with your clients and open the doors in a pitch. So knowing your values and being open about them and including them in a pitch or in a project and share them with your team will basically make you a much better and stronger team. And it will increase performance, make the relationships much, much stronger. And while we know that you cannot have a team and can have everybody in your company 100% align on your values, if there is a 50% alignment, that's a good base. That's what you're looking for. So when we started out, our first game was actually called Sharks in the Park. That was the first game that Amy built. And we launched it on the 1st of April 2016. We got onto TVNZ. And unfortunately, a lot of people thought it was an April Fool's joke, and said it wasn't real, it wasn't possible. We had built, an augmented reality, a geospatial augmented reality game, and it was a really, really awesome TV news article. We got a huge amount of media attention overnight, which earned us the most downloaded kids app on the Apple Store. But that was just a spike, unfortunately, and very soon we had to do the numbers. If we made Sharks in the Park a premium game, we would need thousands of downloads in order to break even and survive. And we didn't have enough followers, and we only had another 3 to 4 months of runway. So that didn't work for us. So what came from that is that we decided, okay, we need to come up with a different revenue model. And from that revenue model emerged Magical Park. What we did is basically we realized that what we were building could also be seen as a digital playground. Who needs digital playgrounds or playgrounds in general? The community, the city. The city has to provide playgrounds to their community. So we thought, okay, right, let's talk to the city. We were in Wellington at the time, so we went to Wellington City. We asked Wellington City whether they would be interested in doing a trial. What was really interesting was that they invited Auckland City, Purirua and Hutt into a closed-door room, and they discussed pricing. And they came out and they said to us, here is how much we're going to pay you. $2,500 per park per year. That's it. But what that meant is that we instantly had $10,000 in revenue. That was our first sale. And that literally bought us another 3 months. Low salary. So that is how Magical Park was actually born. It was released only a month later. So we worked really fast. We worked quite quick. We had developed a platform that we could recycle into something else. And one of the key things from the start was that I had a little stepdaughter. She was 7 at the time. She didn't want to go outside, but Magical Park was supposed to be the idea how we could get her outside and re-engage with nature. So get the best of both worlds, physical exercise, but engaging with imaginary characters in the park. And because I was always thinking of her and thinking as a step-parent, safety, health and safety was key on top of my mind. I wanted to make sure that if anything, this app had to be safe. And I remember one of our mentors from the city of Casey in Australia say to us, always think about what could be the worst possible headline on the front page of the newspaper that's caused by your game, and then work backwards and do everything you can to prevent it. So in our case, this would have been a kid being run over because our game content ended up on the road. So we put every effort into making this game as safe as possible. That was our #1 criteria. And I can tell you how stressed out I was over the first few years, being worried that what if I missed something during game testing? What if I missed a critical bug? What if, there was content on the road and a kid could kind of like get into danger. So I'll play you a quick little video for reference so you know what Magical Park is.
Something very magical is happening. Cities are transforming local parks into vibrant digital playgrounds. Introducing Magical Park, where children uncover science and nature's wonders in our thrilling online reality game, designed to get kids active and spark curiosity. Contact us now to bring Magical Park to your community.
Cool. What happened straight away was that Amy and I sat down and said, what can go into Magical Park and what can't go into Magical Park. And this is one of the most important slides I realized for us, because it literally set one of the core foundations of every game that we've made after this. So this was designed for our very first Magical Park pitch deck. So this is all the way going back to 2016, that slide. We always said we had the tagline, getting kids off the couch and physically active outside from the start. But we try to put ourselves in the shoes of councils and cities and understand their needs and wants. And we realized very quickly that as a city, a digital playground app couldn't have in-app advertising, it couldn't have in-app purchases, definitely no third-party data mining, and the content had to be gender neutral, and also no violence or shooting. The list actually goes on a little bit, but those were the key ingredients that as a city, to make sure that they are providing something to the community, it has to be accessible. So when we're talking about accessibility, we're not just talking about is a player disabled or vision impaired. It also means, are they financially able to download a game? Do they have the device to play? Can they access the game? And so that was the first time when we started to think about what role does a city play within its community? And a city within the community has to provide opportunities for education and well-being. They have to be safe, they have to be free, they have to be squeaky clean. And that squeaky clean is one of the things that I keep focusing on every single time. It has to be squeaky clean. And it has to be done in such a way that it is accessible to as many people from the community as possible, regardless of their income and their finances, their financial situation. So at this particular time, when we started in 2016, we heard a lot about kids using credit cards and racking up horrible bills playing games. We heard a lot about advertising, luring kids into doing the wrong things. And you know that ever since, App Store and Play Store have done a huge amount of work on trying to set almost guidelines for apps, for family apps, for kids apps, to ensure that they are safeguarded. And they've done a really good job. And I cannot emphasize enough how important that also was for us to have a second party checking on us that what we are delivering and what we're publishing is safe. So I see some of the guidelines that we're getting from the App Store and the Play Store as critical to keeping us ethical, to keeping us squeaky clean, because they know what kids' apps are currently trying to circumvent some of the ethical guidelines. How are they trying to manipulate players? And I think as a games company, we always have to remember that we are an influencer, we're a manipulator. And we could potentially manipulate kids into doing the wrong thing. So this is what this slide pretty much speaks to. And it's 100% shaped us and where we're going and who we are now. So Magical Park took off during Parks Week in 2017. We sold 176 pop-up parks in 3 weeks. All of them were coded manually at the time. We didn't have, we didn't expect anything like that to happen, so we were really behind in our admin console and how to set things up, and a lot of things were manual. within 1 week, we ended up attracting over 24,000 park visitors. So it was really incredible, but we didn't understand enough about what our clients needed and how important analytics and data would be to them. We had no idea. So cities need to know how many players come to the park, how long do they play, what's their favorite game, etc. Obviously all while keeping the user, the kid, anonymous. But our systems just weren't set up for that. At the time, all the data for every single city, for every single park was pulled manually. And we had literally around 100 cities pounding us every day for data. Every 2 days they wanted to see their data and we just couldn't do it. So needless to say, we lost a lot of our clients after that success because we had hit a bottleneck. Where we were lucky was that as we kind of like carried on working with them, they would come back to us eventually. But so the other thing that we hadn't considered was councils hadn't thought about the fact that an augmented reality playground is invisible. And it needs marketing, and it needs different marketing to running a community event or running an exhibition. It is invisible, and they didn't understand that. And so no matter how much we were kind of like saying, you need to put up signs, you need to do Facebook marketing, you need to do social media, you need to do paper leaflets, you know, hang something up in your community hall, it didn't matter. It just didn't work. We heard from a lot of frustrated communities who found out about Magical Park after it had finished. And that was really frustrating to us, you know, that they didn't know at the time it was there, marketing didn't work, they found out later. So quite often we found ourselves switching it back on just so that a couple of people could play and we got some extra feedback. The other thing that we realized was parks were set up in areas with no mobile reception, which meant that the game wouldn't even work. But because we couldn't travel all around the world and setting all of those parks up, we did it all remotely. We checked Google Maps, we made sure everything was safe, and in the contract it said that the other part of the safety was on the city. They had to kind of like go to the park and check it, but they never did. And so we realized that was another real hurdle, that we had to make sure that the cities actually took the time and went to the park and checked that there was mobile reception. So there were a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, a lot of frustrations, and in October 2017, Amy dropped the bomb and said she was going to split. And that was like a divorce. So we were fighting over the baby. And we had long time, well, not long time, but at the beginning of when we started, we had kind of like come to an agreement how we were going to fight with each other. And one of the principles of how we were going to fight with each other was always assume that the other one wants the best for everything, that the other one wants the best for the company. This is not a personal thing, this is what is best for the company, and we just have different opinions, different values around that. So when it came to the split, I realized that Amy's biggest fear was that I might take the company and sell it to Coca-Cola. And as we discovered that, I said to her, okay, can we agree that I'm not going to do that? And I'm going to honor your values and your principles and all the things that you set up over those last, 2 years. I continued with the company, and she carried on to Weta Workshop. And still to this day, as you might have been able to tell, she's still my advisor. We're still working very closely with each other and supporting each other in our careers. And she's been amazing. But I was all of a sudden a team of one with a massive imposter syndrome and not really enjoying that situation at all. So that was around about the time when I started to realize something, that we needed to shift that thinking of, or maybe I needed to shift because I was by myself, I needed to shift the thinking of seeing a client as a client and instead seeing them as a partner. And what difference does that make? It makes the difference that now there are responsibilities on both sides. It's not just, like this is what I need to deliver, but the city also has to deliver. And as I was kind of like explaining that and talking to cities and rebuilding the connection and the relationships, I found that it really resonated with them. They didn't want to be a client. They wanted to be a partner. They wanted transparency. They wanted honesty all the way through. And they wanted somebody who was also willing to go the extra mile and support them and look after them. A lot of the people actually in council or in cities have got massive tech phobias. We met some parks and recreation people actually in Germany who were very, very proud of the fact that they still didn't have a mobile phone. So understanding your client's position, their values, and how that aligns with us was really important. So the client responsibilities also started to involve that council staff had to check out the magical park in person. They had to go and play. And we started putting that into the contract as a has to be delivered. So the contractual obligations became, basically the partnership agreement on either side. We would say you have to go to the park, you have to play, and if we don't, get back from you that you have been playing, we won't activate the park. What that did was a couple of things. First of all, they did actually a health and safety check of the area, but also they weren't able to play unless there was mobile reception. So that really worked well. It was interesting, the sort of problems that we came across as we started to shift into contractual agreements was that, for instance, I remember in Auckland going with one of the Parks and Recreation persons to a park that she wanted to set up, and there were diggers everywhere. And she was like, what the heck? We were going to set this up as a magical park. And she didn't realize that they had been given a green light to build a basketball court. So this is the silo effect that happens in cities as well. Parks and Recreation doesn't necessarily know what other parts of the city have kind of organized. So there are heaps of examples of that. So marketing had always been a client responsibility, but they never did a very, very good job at it. So we started to put into the contract as well that we were providing them with marketing material, with templates, with guidelines. We would be there as a partner all the way. And to date, we have worked with over 140 cities. And those 140 cities, when we go into the conversation, we say, this is a partnership. We want to hear your feedback. We will use some of the money that you're giving us to activate the park to implement some of the suggestions that you make. So what would you like to have? Give us your wish list. And that wish list is then implemented with their money. But the other thing that they always ask us is, when we're making those changes, are those changes only visible to us? And they love it when I say, no, it's global. Any contribution that you make, anything, no matter what you want, everybody gets it. So it becomes a real family, a real collaboration project. Cool, emergency management education. Oh my God, I love it. And you might kind of like recognize Japanese emergency management here. We were in Fukuoka, and we actually presented this game in Fukuoka at the International Startup Conference. So I think it was sometime in March 2017 when I got contacted by Auckland Civil Defence, who were inspired by Magical Park, and we were wondering if GOR Games could build something like, they wanted to have something like Magical Park, but with civil defence stuff in it, teaching kids about emergency preparedness. I was so excited about doing this. I absolutely jumped into it with all passion and everything, and I found a new team to help me build this. Actually, one of my mentors within this project was Stephen Knightley from InGame. So he was for quite a while director on my company as well, and we were sister companies. So what I didn't realize as I was jumping into working with Auckland City Council is that this would become a very, very long project and a loss maker, but as rewarding as you can possibly imagine. So here's a little video of something that we built, and then I'll tell you a little bit of a story around that. By the way, this is available in Japanese as well. I've got the whole game filmed in Fukuoka. So this is geospatial, and just giving you a couple of ideas as to how you would play. You would run around the park, and you would basically play an augmented reality game that teaches you about what you need to collect with each individual level. Really fun to play. So we had at the time, we had 6 levels. Let me see if I remember all of them. So we've got storm, flood, tsunami, earthquake. Which one am I missing? And then the last one was zombie apocalypse. Very important. I was actually surprised that Auckland City Council agreed to a zombie apocalypse. But yeah, no, very important. Don't leave any team members behind. We'll wait for the zombie apocalypse. Oh, we missed it. Okay, cool. So, what's the plan, Stan? Which Stan is that little dog. Wasn't right away released. In actual fact, it wasn't released until just before COVID. And that is pretty crazy because we started in 2018, early 2018. And so what happened was that Auckland Civil Defence ended up selling the game to NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency. They then wanted to have a browser game, which we added. NEMA then sold it to the Earthquake Commission. They then wanted to have an interior earthquake level in the browser game. And then we were ready to release the game and publish. And we started to hear about COVID and the pandemic because we're working with Civil Defence. And we were about to publish this game when the team started arguing with NEMA, Earthquake Commission, Auckland Civil Defence, and saying you can't release an emergency preparedness game when we're about to go into lockdown. And the team said, we don't have time to get a grant, we don't have time to get funding, we are now preparing for a pandemic, you're on your own. And so I sat down with the team and I said, what do you think? And the team came back and said, let's just do it. We'll just design the pandemic level, we'll just do it. We went back to NEMA and EQC and they said, the government is not going to pay you in hindsight once the work has been done. They're only paying you before you're starting the work. So whatever you do will not be paid. You need to understand that. But on the other hand, we trust you guys. We've been working long enough together. We trust you to design the entire pandemic level. You just go and do it. Just make sure it aligns with the messages from the Ministry of Health. Within 5 days, we designed the pandemic level and we built it. 5 days. We then went out and crowdfunded 14 languages. So the entire community translated the entire game into 14 languages. Then something funny happened. Now I think it's funny in hindsight. So we were in touch with China. China was sending us their guidelines as to how they were handling the pandemic, and everybody was talking about face mask. So naturally what we did is we had in the game, in the pandemic level, you're collecting a face mask as one of the items for your emergency kit. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody from those 3 entities came back and said, we don't want a face mask in the game. It will never get to the point where we're using face masks. It will not happen. No face masks. No, we don't want face masks in the game. I said, what do you want? It's like a mobile phone. Everybody should have a mobile phone so that if they're in lockdown, they are able to communicate. It's like, okay, all right, we'll do it. We'll replace the face mask with a mobile phone. Still no face mask in the game. Still not. But it is one of those anecdotes between us, especially with the Earthquake Commission, who now owns the game, that it really should be swapped out back to the face mask. So that game set the cornerstone for a very strong emergency management relationship for us, where we can go out and we can say, if somebody's asking us for references, where we can say, would you like a reference from the Earthquake Commission or from NEMA? Because we literally built a pandemic level by ourselves, and everybody was happy, and we felt we did the right thing. So it's not always about money. I guess that goes back to the value, where we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So COVID impact, COVID really helped us to kind of like jump things forward. We all of a sudden got a call from the States, and the States saw Magical Park as an opportunity to do social distancing playground experiences. You don't have to touch anything apart from your own phone. Brilliant. But the person who found us and who actually got us on television in the States was also working with a lot of disabled and kids who would be vision impaired and had all sorts of accessibility issues. She became our brand champion and also our guide and advisor around accessibility. I was rather surprised when she said to me, Mel, you need to build a Magical Park game for vision impaired players who can't see, who are blind. And I was like, what? It's like, you've already done it. You're halfway there. And it's like, what? It's an augmented reality game. How do you want me to make that for blind people? It's like, but I've played it with my phone in the pocket. You can do it. And it's like, you need to explain. And she said, you've used spatial audio in your game. One of the games that you've developed where you have to go and collect kittens, I can hear them. I put the phone in my pocket, I put the headsets on, I walk around the safe zone that you've created, and I can hear where I need to go to collect the kitten. Now build me a game for vision impaired people based on that. And I was like, that completely reframes my idea of a game that is accessible for everyone. Why do we need to design a game that is only for visual people and another game that is only for vision impaired people? Why can't we develop something that has all players in mind? It really opened up my eyes, and it really challenged my thinking around game design. So we built it. I remember that she did a pilot with 15 blind kids, and they invited the media in Miami. And I remember her saying, there was a journalist who said, like, oh, this is just stupid. Like, why would you do an augmented reality game for blind kids? And it really showed how a lot of people just can't get past the basics. They don't understand enough of how players can play together. Imagine how nice it is for a sibling or two siblings to play together the same game, where it doesn't matter whether one child is autistic or vision impaired or whatever. They can all play together. Everybody plays the same game. So to me, that game divide is something that I've started to decide, like, let's see if we can bridge the gap. Here is an example of the game. This is one of the games. We've done a whole realm of them by now. And so understand that you hear the noise individually, and then you go after it to collect. So even if you cannot see, you hear the instructions, you've got your phone in the pocket, you follow the sounds spatially.
You are epileptic and are exploring animals. Follow the sounds each animal makes and get close enough to collect it. You found the narwhal. Narwhals have a long spiral tusk.
The hardest thing about this game was finding the correct animal sounds. And so we're working with a lot of audio engineers to help us isolate the sounds or even recreate them. So that's happened as well. So accessibility, really quickly, we've worked by now on games designed for people with cerebral palsy students. I'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow in the panel talk. Cerebral palsy students who can only signal yes or no. They have no capability of using their hands or can talk, not at all. So literally this was for extreme cases of severe disability. Memory loss, Down syndrome, autism, Asperger's, colorblind, wheelchair users, and then also I want to include, as I did earlier on, accessibility for people on low income with old devices, all the way to, we were challenged by the city of New York, believe it or not, can we come up with something that doesn't require devices? Because in New York, turns out, I think it was 20% of the population do not have access to a mobile device. So their accessibility took another level. And then it goes all the way down to what devices does your audience have access to, if any, right? And if I hear people say, we want a VR game, is that really the best choice? How many people are you going to reach? That depends on what message you're trying to get across and where you're going to use it. But is it really the right tool to use? Should we rather go back in technology and try to make it as accessible as possible rather than always go for the shiny toys? Reaching the widest audience can often mean that you need to look at the player with the least amount of physical abilities. So understanding what sort of players you might want to include or can include in your game design. Katie challenged us when we started to develop Magical Park games, and she said, you need different play modes. And we said, oh, that's easy. We're going to put in an easy mode, an easy play mode, and a normal play mode. And she said, you can't do that. That's an insult. I was like, oh. It's like you can't tell disabled players that they can only play the easy mode and everybody else is normal. And I was like, oh, shit, yeah. No, that's not right, is it? I said, so we tried playing around with labels, and she said, no. It's play, faster, warp speed. And I was like, okay, cool, that sounds cool. Yep, we'll take it. Yep. But we also realized that accessibility can also include, funny enough, whether a player starts a game and gets anxiety. The anxiety is induced by the type of game, by what might you do to the player? Or is it a traumatizing experience? So if I take children and put them in an earthquake game, but they've been through the Christchurch earthquakes, is that recreating the trauma? So these are all things that we needed to start taking into account, especially when we're dealing with subjects that could bring memories back up that, were traumatizing. So this is Stand Tall, and Stand Tall was a game that we developed initially for young people with Down syndrome. You might notice that our character here looks a little bit Down syndrome, not too obvious, but that was part of the goal. The clear guidelines were, like we don't want Barbie doll avatars, we want avatars that our players can relate to. So we played around with various avatars and we tested them with our users. And as we progressed with our financial literacy game for young people with Down syndrome, they broadened the audience and they said, we want you to include autism, Asperger's, everybody else. I was like, whoa, they're total opposite end of the spectrum. At this time, I should probably mention I've been a caregiver since I was 16. So I've worked with all sorts of disabilities and have quite a unique insight into what their lives look like. So I had a bit of an insight as to autism, Down syndrome, not quite the same, not at all. And very, very different logic, and very different skill set. Down syndrome, they're very emotional, they're very emotionally driven, but not necessarily very rational. Whereas you've got autism, they're really rational, really logical, really struggling with emotions. So I want to show you the beginning of a news clip. We also ended in the High Tech Awards. We were nominated and we're finalists, which was really great.
Hello, Maya Hawking. Welcome back. Lovely to have you with us. A new game app is being developed specifically for young people who are neurodiverse or living with an intellectual disability.
It's called Stand Tall, and it teaches them to do just that, from managing their own money to navigating moral dilemmas as they work towards living more independent lives.
These young people are learning vital skills by playing the game of life.
It's a life simulator for when you've just moved out of home and all the challenges you might face along the way.
Stand Tall teaches gamers about budgeting, what to expect from flatting,
No one eats my chocolate fudge ice cream.
and how to know when someone might be taking advantage.
A few of our flatmates have got very different personalities. One of them, Peter, is a bit of a trickster. He might kind of like play a couple of jokes on you, which is our introduction to games.
There's everything from financial dilemmas to moral ones.
I ended up breaking a cup and I was pretty low on money. It's just those decisions that are quite difficult. They seem very easy, but it's very difficult.
For those whose mission is a more independent life,
It feels like a wheel.
it's a game changer.
Cool, we'll stop there. So over time, our team started to grow, and I realized that I attracted a lot of people who had a lot of female graduates, a lot of people who didn't necessarily have the sales skills to get the game jobs. And so this is our team today. Really, really proud. We've got an amazing culture that's very strongly built on values. One of the other things that we keep reminding the team about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So understanding how that fits in with the company, so that as a company, our ethical responsibility is to make sure that the bottom three are pretty much met. You know, so they have shelter, they have enough food to, you know, survive and pay their rent and everything else. And then finding a way to make them feel accomplished. They need to feel that they have a belonging and a place within the company where they can grow, where their career needs are met, and they're not just boxed in. So I'm constantly checking in with the team as to what career desires do you have, where do you want to go, is this still what you want to do? And so we have a lot of people in the team that are changing from one skill set to another, and that creates a very diverse team with a lot of general knowledge from different parts of the company. So you might have a producer who's now a UX UI designer, but she's taking all that knowledge of business with her, which is brilliant. I'm going to jump forward a little bit because I'm mindful of time and I've taken far too long. But we've done a huge amount of projects over the last 8 years, and we've had some really incredible clients that we've worked with all over the world. This is who we are now.
Our traditional and all-meter games prepare the world for a brighter future. Our games empower communities to thrive amid climate change and disasters. Encourage kids to become more active. Inspire the community to learn, discover, and explore. And promote accessibility to players of all abilities. Contact us now so you can join us in shaping a resilient future.
What came from that, and this is where it gets really exciting, is that I started to realize all cities around the world have the same problems. They all ask us about the same topics, the same solutions, but every single city is building the solution from scratch, wasting precious money. I took a bit like of a working holiday and started working with Auckland Council for a few months, developed a lot of empathy, especially around the budget cuts. I started to realize that the first thing that was cut was education. And knowing how all the cities around the world are currently dealing with budget cuts because of climate change and disasters that they have to look after and help the communities, we are now in a situation where the cities need our help more than ever. This is where I see an opportunity between universities, government institutions, and possibly some